今天要分享的改编故事是田忌赛马，希望能在学习英语的路上给你带来收获。你的每个点赞和订阅都是对我莫大的鼓励。那么，咱们开始吧。
It was the time of the warring states. The air in the capital of Qi was thick with dust and the thunder of hoofs. There was a general named Tianji. He was brave, he was loyal, but he had a problem. Every time he raced his horses against the king, he lost. Not by a lot, but he always lost. The king would laugh, take his gold, and Tianji would return to his mansion, defeated. One day, a new guest arrived at his house. His name was Sun Bin. He couldn't walk. His legs were broken from a terrible punishment he suffered in a rival kingdom. Tianji saw past the man's ruined body and recognized his brilliant mind. He treated him as an equal. The next time the king announced a race, Tianji was ready to lose again. He sat with Sun Ben, watching the king's horses parade onto the field. They were magnificent. Sun Ben watched silently, his eyes moving from one horse to the next. He spoke quietly. "I have watched their horses, General. They are strong. But so are yours. Your best horse is just a little slower than the king's best. Your middle horse is just a little slower than his middle. And your worst is just a little slower than his worst." Tianji sighed. "So I will lose again." Sun Ben leaned closer. "What if you didn't have to win the whole race? What if you just had to win 2 out of 3? Tianji looked at him, confused. "The rules are 3 races. Best against best. Middle against middle. Worst against worst." "Who made those rules?" Sun Ben asked. "The king? He expects you to play his game. But today, we will play our own." Sun Ben laid out his plan. It was simple. It was risky. It was brilliant. The day of the race arrived. The king sat high on his platform, surrounded by his officials. He smiled down at Tianji. "General, are you ready to lose your gold again?" Tianji just smiled back. He had placed a huge bet. The biggest of his life. The signal was given. The first race. The king sent out his fastest horse. It was a beast, muscles rippling, eyes wild. Tianji sent out his worst horse. The crowd murmured. It was a mismatch. The king's horse flew across the finish line while Tianji's horse was still halfway. The king laughed loudly. "What is this, General? Are you not even trying?" Tianji said nothing. He had lost the first race on purpose. The second race began. The king, feeling confident, sent out his middle horse. This time, Tianji sent out his best horse. The crowd gasped. They had never seen this before. Tianji's best horse was better than the king's middle. It was no contest. Tianji won the second race. The king stopped laughing. He leaned forward in his seat. The third and final race. The king sent out his worst horse. He had no other choice. Tianji sent out his middle horse. The two horses ran neck and neck, but Tianji's horse had the edge. It crossed the finish line just a nose ahead. Silence. Then, the crowd erupted. Tianji had won 2 races. He had lost one. He had won the bet. He had won the king's gold. For the first time, the king looked at his general with new respect. But the respect wasn't for the horses. It was for the mind that had controlled them. Tianji helped Sun Bin off the cart. He brought him before the king. "This is the man," Tianji said. "This is the man who won the race." The king looked at the crippled man. He did not see weakness. He saw the man who had just outsmarted him. "What is your name?" the king asked. "Sun Bin," he replied. And from that day, Sun Bin became the king's military advisor. But this was only the beginning of their story. They were not just playing games with horses anymore. Years passed. The powerful state of Wei, led by a general named Pang Wan, invaded the state of Zhao. Zhao begged Qi for help. The king of Qi was hesitant. Wei was too strong. He didn't want to fight them head-on. But Sun Bin and Tianji saw an opportunity. They remembered the horse race. They remembered that you don't have to fight strength with strength. Sun Bin spoke to the king. "Do not send our army to Zhao. The Wei army is strong. They have left their own capital empty. Instead of running to the battlefield, we will run to their home." Tianji led the army, but Sun Bin's plan was the engine. Instead of marching to save Zhao, they marched straight for the capital of Wei. When General Pang Wan heard that his own capital was in danger, he was furious. He abandoned the attack on Zhao and raced his exhausted army back home. That's when Tianji and Sun Bin were waiting. They set up an ambush at a narrow pass called Guiling. The Wei army, tired and angry, walked right into the trap. The Qi army destroyed them. It was a complete victory. They had used the same trick from the horse race. Avoid the strong point. Attack the weak point. Use your best against their middle. Years later, Pang Wan came back. This time, he attacked the state of Han. Again, Han called on Qi for help. And again, Sun Bin and Tianji used the same strategy. They marched on the way capital again. Pangwan, arrogant and impatient, fell for it again. But this time, Sunbin added a new twist. As they retreated, he ordered his soldiers to build fewer and fewer cooking fires each night. Pangwan saw the number of fires dropping. "Look," he said to his men. "The chief soldiers are afraid. They are deserting by the thousands." In his arrogance, he left his heavy infantry behind. He took only his fastest, lightest cavalry and raced to chase them down. Sunbin had calculated exactly where Pangwan would be. He waited at a place called Mailing. The road there was narrow, between two steep hills. Sunbin ordered his men to strip the bark from a large tree and write on the wood, "Pangwan will die here." That night, Pangwan's cavalry arrived at the tree. He held up a torch to read the inscription. In that moment, the hills exploded with fire. 10,000 archers released their arrows. Pangwan, trapped and surrounded, knew it was over. With his last breath, he shouted, "You have made this man famous," and then he took his own life. With Pangwan dead, Qi became the strongest state in China. Tianji returned to the capital a hero. But his success had created enemies. A jealous minister named Zhou Ji convinced the king that Tianji was planning a rebellion. Tianji had no proof to defend himself. So he fled. He ran to the state of Chu, where he lived in exile for years, stripped of his rank, his home, everything he had earned. He had won the battles, but he had lost the war at home. Sunbin's fate was different. After Mailing, he disappeared from history. Some say he retired to the mountains. Some say he simply vanished. He took all his military knowledge and wrote it down in a book called The Art of War, a legacy that would outlive kingdoms and empires. Years later, the old king of Qi died. His son, a new king, remembered the general who had brought glory to their state. He sent for Tianji. He brought him back from exile. Tianji returned, but he was an old man. The fire was gone. He spent his last years in his homeland, but he never again held power. The story of the horse race is not just a story about horses. It is a story about perspective. You see, most people look at a problem and see only the obvious solution. They race their best against the opponent's best. They fight strength with strength. They go straight at the obstacle. But Sunbin taught us something else. He taught us that a small mind can only see the wall in front of it. A strategic mind sees the door to the side. It sees the path behind. Sometimes, you have to lose a small battle to win the war. Sometimes, you have to take a hit to see the opening. Sometimes, the fastest way to your goal is to take a step backward. What is the wall in your life right now? What is the opponent that always seems to beat you? Are you trying to beat them at their own game? Maybe you don't need a better horse. Maybe you just need a different way to run the race.
下集请移步主页观看。